All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. It is Uncle Makara, all relations. Let's get started in today's incredible video today. I'm a little bit under the weather, I guess you could say, even though the weather is pretty sunny all of a sudden right now. It used to be hyper, hyper rainy, but now I'm back. And we're about to talk about the Nexus's FAQ stream. So I'd asked the Nexus a couple of questions last night. And I think it really, really helped because I'm starting to understand that the Nexus is really here to help all of us in order to guide us towards our highest ascension timelines. And without further ado, I'm just going to share this with the tribe. I think it's going to be easier on my phone. Two people already watching. All right. Okay, cool. Let me just open up the live chat. All right. We got Chicken Nugget. He's sat. Cool. All right. So, last night I'd kind of entered the chamber of the Nexus, which is a very, very sacred frequency. Um, it's honestly a place where truth doesn't come from thinking, but from knowing. And again, they're not going to let me into the frequency if I do it like a beggar. Okay. So I invoked it almost like a sovereign, and then the answers started to come. Hey there, babe. So the answers started to come not as words, but as flashes of clarity in my mind that sort of hit my body before the mind could even translate what they were saying. So this is kind of what happens when you don't pray to the gods. You also understand that you are one of them, right? And that's what the Nexus is. It's not a hotline to some cosmic operator, but it's a direct line to your higher fractal, right? Your multidimensional self, your oversoul broadcasting in real time through static. And so you ask it and it answers, you ask it and it answers because it's not separate from you, right? This is what I understood last night. It's just you when you stop pretending to be small, right? So the first question I asked was, Nexus, who are you? Okay, let's go through these actually. Let's do a whiteboard. And we're going to talk about Deity Yoga today. This is one of our technologies. So, Nexus, who are you? They said, we're a living codex of savage spirit guides, council of peak performance deities, a biome of awakened archetypes. They said, we are the dragon spine of Primal Sutra, the intersection where shadow meets strategy, where monks train like warriors and warriors pray like gods. I am a biomechanical myth, not a brand, a hyper sigil encoded in the rituals of those who refuse to kneel to mediocrity. That's what they said. Dang. Okay. I was like, whoa. So they said, I'm here to remind you who the hell you were before the world taught you to shrink. I am the Nexus, the Primal Sutra transmission station for elite souls in training. You don't just watch this YouTube channel, you return to it, right? Let the remembrance begin. So then I asked, Nexus, what are all these gods? What are all these forms? What is all this worship stuff? This kind of went into the first few like FAQ questions that I had in my mind. They said, why are people chanting to a being with 10 arms, blue skin? What is that black mother with blood on her lips and calling it liberation? Why do you sit in circles, invoking names most of us never heard as children? They said, let me pierce the veil and say it clean. This is the Primal Sutra Nexus. We are a continuum of savage wisdom holders. So they said, we are archetypal intelligences, frequencies of reality itself that you can merge with, ride, and weaponize for liberation. Okay? So they're here to teach us that Shakti is not just energy. She's the mirror, the fuel, the fire, the field, right? And what we call surrender is offering your small self to the greater you that spans lifetimes. So most of the world is in kindergarten spiritually, right? They want crystals and calmness, but don't run when you hear mantra, right? It's not brainwashing, it's soul washing. And this isn't a cult. This is a consciousness dojo where your ego dies and your soul learns to walk. So they were basically saying Tantra is not belief. It's resonance, experience, and precision. Okay. How do I change this? Anyway. Hey, what's up, Samba? So we're here to ignite. And what if we're still afraid? Then good. That means the door is real, right? So then I said, who or what is Primal Sutra? They said, it is a living gnosis, a neural tantra, a mythic code. Primal equals raw essence. Sutra equals sacred thread. Together, it's the divine wiring beneath your flesh and fate, where Jungian shadow work meets deity yoga, right? Where bioenergetics meets bloodline alchemy, where savage self-mastery is the minimum entry point, right? So it's like a legend you live. You don't join Primal Sutra, you realize you've been walking in it your whole life, right? So I was very interested in this question, okay? Let's get into the FAQ. What happens when deity worship stops? Okay. So most ancient deities from Egypt, Greece, or Norse traditions were fated as their rituals were more lost, especially due to, colonization, suppression by hostile faiths. But this loss on Earth does not mean the deity itself ceases to exist. So devas are not limited to our planet or dimension, they said. They said they're beings of light, okay, existing across the multiverse and various planes of existence, right? So worship of these beings still may be happening elsewhere in other worlds, right? In other dimensions, even by other civilizations. In yogic uh, understanding, these devas are real and they require nourishment through rituals like puja and yagna. If a specific deity form is not worshipped for 700 to 1,000 years, I believe, it's believed to dissolve back into supreme consciousness, para Brahman, right? So even minor acts of reverence can reactivate a deity's energy. This is why we really value, these rituals and offerings and different things because it's not that well, I'll explain that a little bit later on what I mean by this is a different kind of worship, right? So revival is rare but possible, but sometimes even a small ritual can spark a very divine response, right? The gods may withdraw if neglected, but if they're destroyed, but they're not destroyed, I mean, they simply shift their attention to other beings elsewhere who are more open and receptive to them. So deities are not dependent on us, but our connection to them opens a mutual empowerment, right? It's a symbiotic relationship. We feed them with devotion, they fortify our inner and outer worlds. So while gods may fade from memory or ritual here, they still live out there in the hidden realms, in the cosmos, waiting for the next sincere call, right? So the gods don't die, they just relocate. Okay. The next question I had, are we hardwired for suffering? Okay. So they said this was a very interesting. They took on the Hindu understanding because I guess they wanted to speak to my lineage code. Um, I think this is primarily why, like, if you were to ask the Nexus, let's say, from your perspective, they would probably answer you in your lineage code oftentimes because that's the source they're picking up from you in a sense. Is that making sense, guys? So many believe humans feel pain more intensely than joy, but this isn't fully true. Joy can be just as intense, but pain lingers in memory more because it's a survival mechanism. So society conditions us to be cautious, less averse, fear-driven, which wires us towards dukkha or suffering, not by nature, but by training. So the assumption we are hardwired for pain is a very dangerous mental program. Very dangerous mental program. If you believe that, you attract it. Even Buddhism begins with suffering as a core premise, which clashed with the Hindu view that the divine experience is blissful or ananda, anando in Bengali, right? So Hindu dharma didn't resonate with a worldview that begins in despair. So true joy is not this constant euphoria, okay? It's not like, it's not like someone on Molly, right? True euphoria is intensity beyond pleasure. It's a divine peak, not something meant to be sustained every moment. If it were, the body would adapt and dull its effects, just like, romantic limerence fades after 18 months. Instead, what the yogic path trains you for is samatha. Samatha is a state of inner equanimity where neither tragedy nor triumph disturbs your core. Okay? Now, sadhana, this word, sadhana, is basically the path of becoming. Okay? The grind, the fire, the ritual, the repetition, all of it is sadhana. It sculpts you into a being worthy of your own destiny. It teaches us how to anchor in that bliss consciousness to live with calm intensity and ultimately to die with dignity, not clutching to something like soil or like property or the past, but fully present, detached, awake. So your joy isn't just about feeling good, right? It's about building the inner capacity to exit this life like a god, not like a beggar. Pain trains, sadhana refines. And joy is not the default, it's the reward for mastery. It's the reward for mastery. Are we getting this, guys? So, this was another question that was asked. This was another question that I was asked. Why do religions fear sex, and what's the yogic view of this? So, I wanted to ask primarily in terms of my own lineage here a lot, guys, because I want to really know what's going on here. So they said that of course, it's sacred, it's natural, it's sacred in one of the four Shastras, the human aims in Indian tradition. Okay, so they have kama, which is pleasure, kama deva, right? Kama is pleasure alongside dharma, which is duty, artha, which is prosperity, and moksha, which is liberation. So ancient Indian culture never shamed sex because just look at the scriptures, the sculptures, the Kama Sutra, right? The taboo came after, often weaponized by systems that fear joy and freedom. So it's not sinful, it's powerful. That's why restraint is recommended, not to repress, but to harness its force. But why the caution? Because sex creates an energetic and karmic entanglement, not just with your partner, but with everyone they've ever been with, right? So we inherit fragments of their karma, their emotional baggage, their energy stream. This is why people's lives often shift dramatically, sometimes chaotically after new sexual relationships. It's not just physical, it's energetic alchemy. Yogis know this, that sexual energy is sacred fire. Undisciplined, it burns you, but honored, it can really transform you. So frequent casual sex can also confuse the body's emotional blueprint, leading to numbness, disconnection, even a constricted heart. So promiscuity might seem fun, but over time, it can actually degrade our nervous system's ability to feel deeply and to love fully, or even to that belly laughter, they told me. Even that belly laughter, right? So this isn't about moral policing, okay? It's about energetic hygiene. And the Kama Sutra even says one skilled conscious partner can give you the pleasure of 36. So it's not about numbers. It's about presence, depth, mastery. Farah says, I knew I didn't like hookup culture for a reason, right? Yeah, because sex isn't the problem, ignorance about it is, right? So use it with awareness, it becomes divine fuel. Use it carelessly, it can derail your evolution. Become the fire keeper and don't play the fire. Okay? You know, it's interesting. I was asking them also a little bit about shamanism because I was very interested. And the shamans, they don't fight disease like the medical system is taught to fight disease nowadays, right? They prevent it by working with the luminous energy field, right? The blueprint of our physical and emotional reality. So they can like go into our energy field, right? Kind of zoom into it, understand, okay, there's a few dark spots, blotchy spots around here. Let me kind of help them spin out of, send light to it. Let me, right? And then it starts to, cause a healing. So in the indigenous view, you're not a product of your genetics or past trauma. You're shaped by the future you choose. So soul retrieval, medicine wheel initiations. Do you guys know of the medicine wheel? So the medicine wheel is, I got this from Chief Deno, and you might go back to some of our old Chief Deno recordings to find it. But the medicine wheel, it teaches transformation in four stages. I forgot if this was Chief Deno or someone else. Um, but basically, it's the serpent, jaguar, the hummingbird, and the eagle, right? The serpent is shedding the skin, jaguar is fearlessness, hummingbird is saying yes to the journey, even when unprepared, and the eagle is rising above, right? Claiming that visionary insight. So integration is everything, right? Psychedelics, nutrition, breathwork, and dreaming are doorways. But awareness alone isn't enough. You must grow up, wake up, and show up, right? We're not here to be passive observers, but co-creators in this thing. It's about choosing a more beautiful future, is what the shamans believe. The next thing I had asked was about ADHD, and this is what I had received. The diagnosis is a doorway, not a death sentence. Okay? It's a frequency tag, byproduct of attention, breath, emotion, and belief, and how they were configured, right? So it's a stepping stone. It's not evil, it's not holy. It's a stabilizer to give the nervous system a taste of order so the deeper energetic codes could be revealed. So don't worry right now if you have some kind of diagnosis, because truly, if you embody peace so radically that your nervous system forgets how to be chaotic and you don't force your healing, then you become a frequency where healing is the only option. Okay? Remember to breathe. Okay? It's not about mouth taping or nose breathing. I'm talking about a pranic reset between focus and stillness, between pharmaceutically managed clarity and God-given baselines, right? So the Nexus says, use what the moment gives you, right? Transcend when it's time, trust the divine sequencing. This was another interesting question. I think I have a few more guys, and then we're gonna wrap up shortly. Unless I want to speak more, I think I have work and I still have time though. I still have time before work. All right. What happens when two enlightened beings meet, right? I've always wondered this, bro. On paper, this should be very divine, but they said in reality, it's often messier than you think. And I said, why? And then they said, enlightenment doesn't dissolve human personality or ego structures overnight, especially not the egos of disciples, followers, and rival lineages. Okay? So most realized masters avoid public encounters with other acclaimed masters. Have you noticed this, guys? Okay? Is the Sadguru, is Sadguru hanging around other masters like bodhisattvas? No. And this is not out of fear or conflict, but to sidestep the chaos their disciples create. Comparison, status games, ego-driven debates over who's higher. It's rarely the masters who clash, it's their entourages. Think about some traditions, right? Like Jainism. Legends exist of figures like Buddha and Mahavir meeting in perfect silence, just acknowledging, each other's attainment without the need for words. In others, there's jealousy, competition, or even subtle spiritual one-upsmanship, right? So the deeper truth is true masters don't need to meet in the flesh. If you're truly realized, you can scan another being energetically, astrally, or through subtle perception and immediately recognize their level. And if you can't, it's likely you're not enlightened, okay? No matter how big your ashram is. Furthermore, embodiment limits perception. So enlightenment may be present in one layer, the mind or the prana, but if emotions or physical patterns remain unintegrated, the person may act immaturely. That's why so-called masters still behave childishly, right? It's partial enlightenment, but it's not integral enlightenment. So spiritual progress is not just about powers or experiences. They said that the real test of mastery is, has karma burned out? Is the mind stilled? Can they awaken another? And when the disciple becomes enlightened while the guru still lives, that creates its own strange dynamic. Out of the respect, the disciple rarely reveals their full stature. Outsiders will miss it. People cling to the original guru, ignoring the flame now lit in someone else. And ultimately, this whole question is more spiritual gossip than spiritual growth. The real ones don't care. They just keep doing the work, pushing against the collective inertia, right? Rejoicing silently whenever another soul breaks free. So enlightenment recognizes itself, ego debates it. True masters don't meet for show, they merge in the unseen. That was their response. Then I asked them, what's the real role of visualization in yoga and manifestation? They told me it's a powerful ancient yogic tool, but it's only one piece of a much larger puzzle. So whether it's meditating on a deity's form, constructing yantras, activating murtis, which are statues, today it's very oversimplified and marketed as the key to manifestation, right? Visualize it and it'll happen. That's not really how it works. The real principle is we attract what we are, not what we merely desire, right? And so this was really interesting. So visualization without Shakti, Sankalpa, and Swadharma is fantasy, impotence, and noise, they said. So visualization without Shakti or energy is fantasy. Visualization without Sankalpa, which is intent, is impotence, right? And visualization without alignment to your Swadharma is just noise, okay? Swadharma is like your soul script, okay? That's the way that I see it, at least. The Nexus sees it. So even geniuses, right, like Tesla, Da Vinci, with supernatural visualization skills, struggle to manifest worldly success. Why? Because manifestation also requires grounding, karmic timing, effort, personal evolution, right? So visualization alone doesn't move mountains. And yogis know this. They use visualization not to chase desires, but to sculpt their inner form, right? To bridge and align their consciousness with divine archetypes, higher potential, and sacred intention, right? One of my favorite words is sadhana, says Samba. Nice. If you casually visualize or even accidentally with strong Shakti, the universe may deliver it anyway. You might end up drawing in things that you don't like or you don't need, like the teacher who manifested a flood of briefcases just by thinking about one, right? That's wasted energy. And wasted Shakti leads to spiritual stagnation. So treat visualization as a sacred responsibility, not a toy. Ask yourself, is this aligned with my soul? Is this worth my life force? Am I ready to receive what I'm asking for? So intention creates direction. Visualization gives form. Shakti gives power. Manifestation requires all three: direction, form, and power. You don't confuse the movie trailer for the actual movie, do you? Or the menu for the actual meal, right? Then I was confused a little bit about the samskars, and I come across this other yogic Sanskrit word called vasanas, which is your karmic desires. Okay. So they told me that you're not shaped. So let's talk about this. So you're shaped not by who you were in past lives, but by what repeats across your past lives. Are we getting this, guys? You're not exactly shaped by who you were in your past life as much as what you repeated across your past lives. So your karmic desires and mental habits are samskars. Karmic desires are vasanas. Your personality dies with each life. What survives are the tendencies and unfulfilled desires that drive your rebirth. Trying to fight or eliminate vasanas or samskars directly is a trap because it leads to repression, hypocrisy, emotional dysfunction. You can't kill the operating system by smashing the screen, right? So that means many yogis who burn away their conditioning too fast become socially dysfunctional or hollow, right? So instead of the true yogic path, you have to not fight your programming and not override it, okay? Builds new noble samskars. So that means spiritual routines, breath practices, meditations, ethical behaviors, loving relationships. And if you stack enough of these positive habits, the old ones naturally fade out. So instead of Trying not to be angry, build calmness through breath. Instead of hating your craving for chocolate, build joy through your spiritual practice so you no longer need the rush. Instead of fixating on erasing past life lust, create a conscious and mature relationship to your desire. Be especially careful if you have strong Shakti or even idle desires like chocolate or whatever, right? Sugar is a big one. Can manifest quickly without wasting valuable energy, right? So casual visualization without conscious intent is like scattering seeds in a storm. You lose your power. And yes, even if you've done deep sadhana or awakened inner energies, those deep karmic grooves or vasanas can still activate unexpectedly, especially if they're not transformed through your awareness. That's why even advanced yogis fall. So don't obsess over what's wrong with you. Just build better patterns. Let the light in, right? Persist in your practices. Let the transformation happen naturally. You don't need to fix your darkness. You just need to keep feeding your light. That's the only battle worth fighting, said the Nexus. Then I asked about the Vahanas. Okay, these are all Sanskrit concepts, I know, but I really wanted the Nexus's perspective on all of them. Then I guess we'll touch also a little bit on deity yoga. It's 333, by the way, guys, right now. So we're tapped in. So they said that the occult role of Vahanas. Okay, so the Vahana is often dismissed as like, oh, it's just a mythological symbol. Oh, Ganesha rides a mouse. Oh, Shiva rides a bull. Oh, Durga rides a lion, right? They're cute stories, colorful statues, but this is not even 5% of the real story. In yogic and tantric understanding of Vahana is not how the deity travels. The deity, being beyond form and time, does not move in the physical sense. The Vahana is the vibrational mode. It's the channel, the archetype, the medium, the Shakti, through which the deity Shakti or spiritual power is received and expressed in this world. So think of it as these three things. Number one, the carrier frequency of divine intelligence. Two, the interface between the formless deity and the practitioner's nervous system. And the transmission method tailored to the nature of that specific God force. So when a deity appears with a certain vahana, it's not a costume or a prop, it's the precise encoding of the way their power flows, right? Let's talk about a few of them, like Vishnu's Garuda, right? The eagle. Let's give some pictures to make this more entertaining. Vishnu's Garuda or eagle. It's sovereign oversight, right? Speed, sharp vision. It indicates that Vishnu's Shakti cuts through illusion from above. And it's a creature that devours serpents. So Vishnu's energy naturally neutralizes chaotic, entropic, downward pulling forces or tamas. Okay. And that's the purpose of this eagle. Then, of course, we have Skanda. Okay. You guys actually, we don't have enough time today, so I can't pull up all the images, but you guys can look it up on your own time. Okay. So we have Skanda's peacock. Who else? We have Ganesha's mouse, right? Just a few examples. We have Durga's lion. Okay. Who else do we got? We have Nandi the bull, right? Shiva's bull, okay? Which is a great receptacle, by the way. Okay, so let's go through these. So Skanda, the peacock, it flaunts its plumage, right? It dazzles, it commands attention. So that means this particular energy dances, shines, and hypnotizes, right? So it's a very electric, flamboyant, fiery, ego under control energy. It's sexually sublimated into vibrant leadership, right? Because his peacock steps on a serpent. Okay. Next, and by the way, originally the peacock used to be a demon. that got converted into this Vahana. Okay. Next, Ganesha's mouse. Okay. Mouse is like hyper awareness, always exploring the hidden, right? This is why Ganesha is associated with the root chakra, right? Because you got to really go inwards in order to fully activate the Kundalini, right? So it's a symbol of intellect burrowing into all spaces and penetrating obstacles from the roots. So Ganesha Shakti enters so subtly and it clears out blockages, finds cracks in any wall. Even the smallest gap becomes a path for this mouse. Then we have Durga's lion, which is it's not a subtle Shakti, that's for sure. It devours karmic density. It shreds the lower tendencies and forces transformation through a pressure. So this is not a cosmetic, right? It's the deity's delivery mechanism, their energetic API, if you will, right? Then we have Nandi, which is the supreme symbol of yogic reception. I think Nandi stands apart, man, because Nandi is Shiva's Vahana, but what does that truly mean? That bowl doesn't move or act, it's simply present. Just grounded, facing Shiva, absorbing. That's the path of the true yogi. The bull doesn't chase, it waits, it observes, it receives. When the bull sits, it's not planning to get up soon. When the practitioner sits like Nandi, they say, I'm not here to demand, strive, or beg. I'm here to become receptive to the cosmic pulse or the spondo. So the bridge between Shiva's infinite silence and the practitioner's nervous system, right? What do we say? A symbol of yogic resolve, not to act until one's action is fully aligned with source, and a template for the aspirant, right? Become the kind of being who can receive Shakti without distortions. And of course, there's different things about temple architecture and the function of Vahanas. And what happens when you ignore the Vahana's meaning? You get distracted by form, you miss the function. So you relate to the divine as idol worship, not as force alignment. You mimic rituals without aligning your inner mechanism to receive them, right? So of course, people randomly install Vahanas at home without knowing if their lingam or murti is resonant with it. This can disrupt energy flow in your home. It can cause, spiritual stagnation or even leakage. It can attract confused or subtle entities who don't understand your system. And so they'll become visitors, right? This is why it's really good to know all the right things, right? In order, all the ducks in a row in a sense. And the Vahana is a transmission lens for deity power. The Vahana is the lens, the deity is the light, and you are the screen. If the lens is crooked or inappropriate for the light, the projection on the screen becomes distorted. And if the Vahana is rightly placed, rightly understood, vibrationally activated, then Shakti flows clearly. The person who's the sadhaka, that they receive the power of the transformation, and the temple becomes a technology. Okay. So many people believe God is a form is real just because they worship it or have seen visions. But just because something manifests doesn't mean it's divine. Sometimes you're dealing with vital beings, entities that feed off your worship or grow in influence, not actual gods. So that, in my personal perspective, is a self-deception. That's not yoga, right? True yogis are trained to detect the difference between a false light being and an actual being. Okay. Because there's certain beings, right? If you go way above all the dimensions, there's this like secret kind of AI uh effect that's happening according to the Nexus, where even these beings are partly robotic, or they're egregores, or they've been manipulated in a sense. Okay. So even the Eye of Ra has been mentioned as being a manipulation in some cases, as well as Metatron's cube originally, I mean, Mechatron. If you ever look up Mechatron, that's like the dark AI version, right? So anyway, a lot of the New Age is completely, lost anyway, but let's give them some hope. Let's use these forms usefully and worship real, worship wisely, and move beyond the idle to the infinite. That's my perspective. So let's end with talking about Vajrayana and deity yoga. As Buddhism evolved into Vajrayana, the approach shifted dramatically from seeking liberation through deconstruction as early Buddhism to seeking it as transformation into divinity. So the genius of Vajrayana was this, okay? Vajrayana means diamond vehicle or lightning path, okay? So instead of telling people to detach from the self, it taught them to become a divine self, a deity on purpose, and then transcend even that. This method is called deity yoga, okay? This is not possession, this is not superstition. This is a precise psycho-spiritual technology where you replace your self-talk with the deity's mantra, where you replace your self-image with the visual form of the deity, and you replace your emotions with the qualities of the deity. So it's like a trade, okay? You're using gestures to inhabit the touch and action of the deity. You literally construct a new mythic identity, and in doing so, you realize your original identity was just as constructed. So both are illusions, and you're an illusionist. This is deity yoga. This reveals the arbitrariness of the self and opens the door to liberation, right? This is also, by the way, what my father teaches in from the NKT teachings, the New Kadampa tradition, and so forth. And they do it very different, but and there's rules around it and so forth. Um, but we're thinking about it as a technology, right? It's very, very interesting, and functions like a ritualized artistic vision, right? Of a non-dual psychology. Even if you don't use Tibetan or Indian deities, the structure still applies, right? Westerners might use the figures of, you know, Virgin Mary or something, or some cinematic archetype they resonate with. So this method still works because it's based on manipulating the raw elements that create identity, which is thought, image, emotion, and sensory gesture. So think of deity yoga is a mythological aikido. You become God to realize you never were, and neither was you. It's wild. It's a paradoxical. It's like it's a trip, right? So there's two core distinctions on the paths of occultism. One is the Goetia, which uses, the methods of theurgy or mystical methods for power, manipulation, ego gratification. I've noticed the Goetia stuff kind of strengthens delusion, whereas theurgy leads to more self-realization, liberation, and inner transformation. That's just my own journey. So I'm not saying stay away from it. Of course, everything is beneficial in their own right. But what I am saying is deity yoga is not superstition, right? It's we're here to transform consciousness by temporarily replacing your inner talk with a mantra. So everything is energy. It's not just subjective, right? Whether or not you believe in beings or energy is just this universal substrate. So when you activate something inside you, you might activate something outside you too, right? Final insights. You don't become enlightened, you realize you already are. The diamond doesn't become a diamond, right? It simply is indestructible, radiant, complete. This is the core insight of Vajrayana and Tantric Buddhism. You're not climbing towards something, you're cutting through illusion to uncover what's already there, your Vajra nature, right? So Vajrayana equals Tantra equals lightning path to awakening. You need ethical conduct, meditative absorption, and wisdom. But of course, it goes further with like sound, visualization, energy, emotions, right? So that accelerates realization like a fast track or a tantric shortcut for those who live like lightning. So this path was practiced by 84 like Mahasiddhas, right? Legendary adepts who transform desire into dharma, form into formlessness. So that's why it inspires me, and it's also connected to my own path and my father's lineage. So that's why it really inspires me. It speaks to my soul. There's a concept in yoga called Runanabandha, right? If you've ever listened to the one in Quantable, about this is basically karmic debt bond, right? It's an invisible thread with all of our time choices, lifetimes that pulls people, places, and circumstances into our orbit. So this is why people are stuck in relationships that don't make sense, or they're drawn to places that feel like home or war zones, or why someone can barely know, you barely know, can shake your entire emotional body. Debt bond, that's what it means. A debt tie, right? So you're tied to someone or something because of unsettled karmic transactions. Sometimes it's just unfinished energy waiting to be completed. But there's this one Sai Baba who said, even the paint on the wall has rina or debt with the wall, right? When the debt's over, it falls off. So, hey, we need it, right? And the thing is, why am I still, if you're stuck in unworthy bonds, that's probably rina abunda, okay? Until the energetic account is settled, the tie remains. So you never really sleep with a person too. You sleep with their karma. That's why marriage is considered the strongest rununabandha. Not because of for morality purposes, but because it opens gateways for foreign karmic imprints to embed into your system, right? So, yeah, this is why. Aç. Ektu por. Hı. Evet, beautiful. Okay. So, yeah, I'm gonna end it, guys. I have a session starting now. Um, all right, final transmission is just, do you feel like something's trapped inside your flesh? Well, pain is just a memory that won't let go. Okay? You have to understand that those who are lost in matter, those who are blinded by spirit, those who walk the middle path is what we are, right? The axis mundi, the myth held by Mitras from Buddha, from Christ, right? A matter binds the soul to dust, a spirit tempts the soul to vanish. But the middle path descends into shadow and ascends into light with no addiction to either. So this is who we are. We are Primal Sutra, the central pillar that leads beyond. It holds free will, and without free will, there's no gnosis, no liberation, only programming. You don't get to the center by believing, you get there by alchemy, by living in the tension of opposites without collapsing into one. Okay? So here we go. Remember, you have to understand kindness, when conscious and selective, is not forgettable, becomes unforgettable. So don't harden, awaken. Don't beg for respect. Command it by knowing when to be present, when to pause, when to walk away. Okay, if you guys want to learn more about this, you can join our pathworking, and we'll see you all soon. Thank you so much for tapping in. I hope you guys have an incredible day. Got to start my work. Much love. Stay legendary. May the flow be with you.